I like honey, I like it on my toast, I like it on my pancakes. But as you can see, I've just run out of honey. Now, thankfully, I can get some more honey because there are bees to make it for me. But what if there weren't? What would the world look like without bees? So we run out of honey. Fine, I'll eat marmalade. In fact, if we ran out of bees and honey, the first thing to do would be to set up a marmalade company because you're going to clean up. But there's more to it than that. It's not just about what I have for breakfast. People aren't screaming about bees dying because of what I have for breakfast. There isn't people marching in the streets and painting banners, you know, and lying in front of tractors because I'm not having the breakfast that I want. The reason that people are scared of losing bees is because bees are really bloody important. How important? Actually, I don't know. I don't know much about bees. I thought I knew a bit about bees, but I actually don't know that much at all. And when my friend Beck asked me to make a film about wild bees, I'm like, I don't know much about wild bees. I'm going to have to find out. Okay, I'm being slightly facetious. I do know there's a difference between domestic bees and wild bees. There are wild honeybees, but most honeybees are domestic. But in this film, we're talking about both. Mostly wild bees, but also honeybees. They're all really important. This is my friend Beck. She's brilliant. She's as mad as a spoon, but it's a silver spoon because she's a silversmith and a goldsmith. She's a jeweller, basically, and she loves nature. She lives in a beautiful bit of farmland, and also she lives quite near Manchester, and the symbol of Manchester is, guess what? The bee. Why is that? Because Manchester's all busy place with, like, you know, people making indie music and factories and all the industrial past, and so they chose the bee as their symbol. And she thought one day, oh, why don't I make some bees, some silver bees, and use some money from the silver bees to save the bees? And that's what the PlanBees project is about. So what is the problem with bees? Why is everyone so upset about it? What does it matter? I mean, you wouldn't be bothered if it was mosquitoes, would you? Or slugs. So are the bees all dying? Is it Armageddon? Basically, dogs and cats living together, the end of the world, you know, raining fire, 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Is that it? Or does it really not matter? I don't know. I need to find out. Okay, let's break this down into sections. Let's start with the problem. What is the problem for wild bees? What's going on? Now, as you can probably imagine, the first thing I did was ask about 10,000 questions to Google. You know, are all the bees dying? Is it just wild bees? What's the difference between wild bees and domestic bees? Are we running out of honey? I just thought, sod it, I'm just going to ask everything. It turns out that there was around 270 species of wild bees in this country, and thanks to the genius behaviour of humankind, we've already lost 11, and 35 more are under threat, and to be honest, they're all in danger. Brilliant. Well done. But that doesn't matter because we don't need wild bees because they don't make honey, and so what do we need them for? They're a bit pointless, aren't they, really? I mean, how much of the food is actually dependent upon bees and flying insects pollinating? I mean, is it all of it? I mean, is wheat and rice? Well, no. I mean, wheat and rice are air pollinated, so great, we can eat wheat and bread and rice, and we can eat nothing but carbohydrates in a very non-keto way for the rest of our lives. We all know how that ends. The sad truth is that most plants with flowers on them require insects to pollinate them, and the same is true of crops. And that's your fruit and your vegetable and your 5 a day. So if you want to be healthy and gym fit and booty ready, you're going to need bees. Bees are helping you look sexy. They're helping you feel good. They're helping you being a sanctimonious bugger who sits there while I'm eating a cream bun and eats a fruit salad. If you want to be that sanctimonious bugger, you need bees. But are all the insects dying? Yes, they are. Actually, since 2004 to around the present time, we've lost about 65 to 70% of our flying winged insects in this country. And whose fault is it? It's our fault. Brilliant. Okay. This is bad. You know it's bad because I took my glasses off like that woman in Jurassic Park because she saw the big dinosaur. Bees are dying in huge numbers, mass extinction, all our fault. Absolutely brilliant. Well done, humankind. Doing a fantastic job there. And I don't know what's causing it, what we can do about it. And I'm starting to worry about it now because even though I'm not going to run out of honey, might run out of life. And
although I like honey, I like life more. I think it's time to speak to an expert.
Okay, we figured out there's lots of stuff wrong and I don't know anything about it. Let's ask someone who does.
Someone who's done something famous and bee related. And I found this chap, he's called Dave Goulson, and he set up the Bumblebee Conservation Trust.
Now, he's not with the trust anymore, but he is one of the leading experts on wild bees and bumblebees in the UK, if not the world.
And it's not that he only cares about bumblebees, but of course everyone loves a bumblebee. If you don't love a bumblebee, you don't actually have a soul. Bumblebees are probably the most popular insect, certainly in this country, possibly in the whole world, because they're furry and bumbly and sweet. Now, I asked Dave the hard questions. Dave, what the bloody hell is going on? What's happening to the bees? What are we doing?
If you go back 100 years, Britain had about 7 million acres of flower-rich grasslands, lowland hay meadows and chalk downland and whatnot, which is beautiful habitat, full of flowers for lots of the year. Absolute heaven for lots of species of bee and other insects. And we destroyed, in the middle 50 years of the 20th century, we destroyed about 97% of that habitat. But they switched to, hay became uneconomic basically. So they switched to silage, which is more productive. So they plowed up the fields, they poured fertilizer on. Now you get bright green fields of ryegrass, which produce lots of food for cows and, other livestock, but are pretty much devoid of any biodiversity and have no flowers at all, typically. So,
Oh my God, this is a desert. It's a bloody desert. Never mind whether feet walked on these pastures green away from the bloody satanic mills. It's for a bee, this is a desert. This is Lawrence of Arabia territory. It's like sand to a bee because there's no flowers. So let me get this straight. We had a system which worked. Hay, love a bit of hay, lovely tumble in the hay, and there's lovely flowers for the bees, worked perfectly, thousands of years. And then some bright spark in the middle of the 20th century goes, no, get rid of the hay, get rid of the lovely hay with the flowers, and we get some bloody silage. Silage. Who wants to go for a tumble in silage?
So what is silage? Well, it's fermented grass or fermented fodder crops that are sort of sealed in an airtight bag. And they just start to ferment. And it turns into this rather stinky kind of, it's disgusting stuff, really. It's one of those smells, one of those country farmer smells you always get. It's like, oh my God, silage. But actually, it's got really concentrated nitrates in it, it's got concentrated protein in it and lots of other goodness. So it's really good for the animals, the poor bastards that have got to eat that stuff through the winter. But it's good for them, It's like all bran. It's like a bag of sticks, really, but it's good for you.
Ultimately, it's better for the farmer, it's better for yields. Farmers have a tough time. I'm not having a go at farmers. I wonder whether we could make it work again, though. Because the people who came up with this idea, whilst they wanted to have higher yields for farmers, did it occur to them that we still need bees? I mean, have we only just found out what bees are for? Have we only just discovered that without bees we'll be buggered? Maybe people thought in the past, oh bollocks, life without bees, absolutely fine. I hardly even noticed them. I get the fact that the silage is a problem, and maybe that's a big question to talk to big governmenty people, not necessarily something I can do at the moment. Problem that's very difficult to solve. Don't want to have a go at farmers. We like farmers. But if we've lost 65% of our insects or 70% of our insects since 2004, that can't just be habitat loss. I mean, I look out the window, it looks pretty much the same as it did before. I go back where I grew up, it looks pretty much the same. What's going on?
Where I live around in East Sussex, there's still lots of woodlands, there's lots of meadows. You'd think there'd be places where insects could thrive, but they don't seem to be. And maybe part of it is, insidious effects that we can't easily appreciate. I mean, one of the things that my own research group discovered quite recently was this issue that flea treatments used on dogs and cats, they're in every river in England, and concentrations way above those that are known to be harmful to insects. So and it's completely invisible. We had no idea that was happening until, water samples were tested, and then it just turned up in every single sample.
Pets, cute, cuddly little pets, cats and dogs. Brilliant. Absolutely top drawer. So you didn't think that if you put something which kills one insect onto a creature which runs around woods, jumps in rivers, etc., might possibly have a knock-on effect. If you cover yourself in excrement and you run around a room full of white sofas and white furniture, those white sofas and white furniture are going to get covered in excrement, even though that wasn't your original plan.
Now, I get why people don't like fleas. I mean, fleas are nasty little buggers. I mean, the Black Death, for example, was spread by fleas on rats and humans, believe it or not. And that wiped out about a third of the population of Europe. That's a bitter pill to swallow, so I can see why the hatred of fleas has continued for the last, 600 to 700 years.
I mean, I don't like fleas, and I like cats and dogs, and I don't want people to have fleas in their house. And I don't know what the solution is, but I certainly didn't know that this was happening.
Are there any alternative flea medicines? Ones that are kinder for the environment? Well, yes, there are. I found a few, and I'll link a few below so you can have a look.
So if you are a cat or a dog owner, it's something to think about. Now, when I was Googling, I did find something which suggested that competition between domestic bees and wild bees could be a problem. Now, I like domestic bees, I like bee farmers, I like honey, and I'm not going to have a go at them. But is this something that we can look at or manage? Well, first of all, let's ask the beekeepers.
When we put our hives down, there is an abundance of nectar, and that is evident when we're going inspecting the hives. So although we can see our honeybees working and thriving on the nectar, the amount of bumblebees we see and other pollinators, and ultimately ones we don't see, so the moths and things like that come out at night, in my opinion, there's more than enough for all, to be honest.
There is this story going around that the honeybees are damaging the other sorts of pollinators, the bumblebees and the butterflies and everything else. But what you'll find is that each type of insect or pollinator has its own niche. So they feed on, or they collect nectar from different types of plants at different times of the day and so on. So they're not directly competing with each other. It's kind of a myth that's come from somewhere. So honeybees aren't damaging other pollinators.
All right, so actually they eat different things absolutely fine. Let's ask Dave.
You've only got to go out anywhere where there are flowers and you'll see honeybees and wild pollinators visiting the same flowers. I mean, just looking out my window, there's a whole load of bramble in the hedge. Well, look at bramble flowers. In summer, you get butterflies, you get bumblebees, you get solitary bees, and you get shitloads of honeybees, all feeding on the same flowers. So honeybees are they have about the broadest diet of any known species of bee. They visit literally thousands of species of flowers, which are also visited by hundreds or thousands of species of native insects. So yeah, sorry, but that's absolute nonsense.
Great. So even me having honey might be causing a problem. So do beekeepers not care about bees?
I mean, on the whole, beekeepers, their interests are quite well aligned with, conservationists, people worried about wild bees, because the honeybees face a lot of the same issues. They need more flowers, they need fewer pesticides. So beekeepers usually are allies in the, sort of environmental battle.
Of course, beekeepers care about bees and wild bees. They love insects. We wouldn't be working with insects if they didn't love insects. Of course, they care about wild bees, and they do everything they can. And I'm sure they take measures to make sure that their bees don't impact the wild bee populations. I'm sure there's more to do. We can't go blaming the beekeepers for everything. We need domestic bees. We need domestic bees because we need honey, and also all those bees are pollinating the plants, which we've already talked about we need for our food supply. So it's a question of, trying new ideas and learning things, but actually at the moment beekeepers do a pretty good job. So shouldn't the government be sorting this out? Well, so have you heard of the SFI, the Sustainable Farming Incentive, which is giving money to farmers to do rewilding, to develop sort of wildlands and stuff like that, habitat for biodiversity like bees and other creatures. And it's actually a really good idea, and farmers love it because contrary to popular belief, farmers care a lot about the land. They don't want their farms to be wasteland. They also care a lot about their animals and everything as well. Farmers are really caring people. They look after the land. They are the caretakers of the land. So of course they got involved. In fact, loads of them got involved. So many got involved that the scheme pretty much went bankrupt. They've had to shut it down because it's clearly not sustainable. Brilliant. Brilliant. Well done, Labour. Really, really thought that through. Didn't have enough money. Lovely idea. Sounds like a few other things, doesn't it? So what about domestic beehives? Having one at the end of your garden. Is that all right? Now, of course, beehives are the ultimate accessory at the moment. Oh, darling, we've got a beehive in the garden. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's honey, you know, it's great. I think it's lovely that people do it. But a little bit of forethought is required. You've got to make sure there's enough forage. This is my little beehive here. It's my friend Ed's beehive, but we're both working on it. We're learning to become beekeepers. It's very exciting. Our ladies are in there making the honey, which is awesome. There isn't another beehive for about almost a mile in any direction, as far as I've looked around this area. Loads of flowers here, flowers on the trees, flowers in the field. So this is how to do it. You know, there's not much competition with the other bees here. But sometimes people get this wrong. I mean, how many beehives should you have if you're like a domestic bee farmer per acre, for example?
So we are classed as migratory beekeepers, so we're constantly moving the hives around through the season. So on large acreage, you could have, well, ultimately depend, but around 60 to 100 colonies. I think 2 hives per acre is the ideal scenario. So when we go down Herefordshire and pollinate the borage, that's kind of what they're looking at.
Okay, well that makes sense. Now there's also a big all-the-rage thing about urban beehives at the moment. Now there are some people that do this right, and this lady's one of them from Highgate Honey, and this is her take on urban beekeeping.
I think there's a balance. I mean, I keep bees in London, in the north side of the city, and they do very well. I know people who keep bees in the city, the square mile, and they just have to feed them continuously, and obviously that's completely ridiculous.
So this whole thing about urban hives, what's that got to do with wild bees? Well, there's plenty of wild bees living in the city as well. And if there's not enough forage for all the bees in the hives, you're having to feed them sugar, what do you think's happening to the wild bees?
I mean, you only have to look around and see there's no forage for them. So part of our piece is to encourage people to plant more for bees, and like you said, different types of bee tend to forage on different types of flowers, and they're adapted to forage on different types of flower.
Some urban areas have ended up with way more hives than they can support. I mean, London famously, there's in the region of 10,000 honeybee hives in central London, because they're on every hotel as a kind of greenwashing exercise to, you know, the hotel can serve its own honey. But the hives in central London are all starving because there's too many honeybees and not enough flowers.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Another wonderful own goal for mankind, humankind. Actually, we'll call them mankind this time, because this is probably a bloke who came up with this ridiculous idea. You've got 10,000 beehives. Bees are starving to death. So you're feeding them sugar to make the honey for your hotel honey and your branded honey. And when I join the firm, they give me a little starter pack and I get my little branded pot of honey with it. It's like saying, I've got a chocolate factory. Okay, how do you make the chocolate? Well, I buy chocolate and I melt it down, and then it goes through the machine, and then it comes out with my chocolate, with my brand on it. So just so we're clear, you're buying chocolate and you're making chocolate. They're not feeding the bees honey, they're feeding the sugar solution, but they might as well be feeding it their own honey for all the logic that's going on here. The bloody things are starving to death. There's nothing for them to eat. There's not enough forage in the city for all these bees. But people think, oh, I'm getting my little green credentials, you know, I'm a little David Attenborough disciple because I'm saving the world, because I'm basically not thinking and I'm behaving like a 6-year-old. Okay? Have bees, but think about where the other bees are and what they're competing with. It's just the most basic common sense. And on that note, bees in the city. If you live in a city or you live in a town, please don't concrete over your garden and replace it with AstroTurf. Nothing says class like an AstroTurf garden. If I turn up to a party and there's an AstroTurf garden, I will make my excuses and politely leave. An AstroTurf garden is an abomination. A really big lawn is a bit of a problem for bees, but concreting it over and covering it in AstroTurf is really exacerbating the problem. So please do think again, and if you have done that, maybe have a summer project of digging the bloody thing up and putting some flowers there. How about that?
Gardeners, I'm talking to you now. There's a lot of poison involved in growing a garden. All right, I'm going to check this out. I'm going to the garden centre.
Okay, so I'm going into this with an open mind. I'm at the garden centre. I'm going to go in there, we're going to have a look at weed killers, pesticides and fertilizers, and just get an idea of some of the things that are in there. Before I do this, I'm not having a go at either garden centres or gardeners. I think a lot of this information is not being made available to them, or they're not being made aware of it. And I think this is part of the problem. I think it's people don't want to go around harming insects. They know that insects are good for their gardens. It's just, and it is transparent to some extent, but I do feel that it's not getting enough attention, and I feel that people are probably, they don't realise the damage they're doing. I absolutely believe that. So let's find out. I'll take a look at a couple of products. I'm just going to pick some random ones and see what's there.
Weed killers kills brambles, nettles, dock and other tough weeds. Okay, brambles, nettles and dock all have flowers on them, all right? Apply from May to October. That's the best time for bees. It kills weeds, not grass. Bees don't like... It's like saying, go to the desert, it wipes out the oasis, but it'll leave the sand. This is a fertilizer. It's got phosphorus pentoxide. Okay, phosphorus pentoxide. What does that do to bees? Phosphorus pentoxide is highly toxic to bees and all other living organisms. Great, let's spread that on my garden. Put it on your runner beans. It is a dehydrating agent and a strong acid that causes severe burning and irritation upon contact or ingestion. This is a fertilizer. It's not even a pesticide. This one's a weed killer. Keep away from children. Take to the recycling centre as hazardous waste. Do not contaminate water with the product. Keep off skin. Wash off splashes immediately. I mean, this is like poison death. Oh, look, a wall of slug repellent. Okay, slugs don't make honey. We don't really like slugs as much. Slugs annoy gardeners. But do we even need slugs? Yes, we do. Because, first of all, slugs are fantastic decomposers. And if you like soil, worms do a good job, so do slugs. Also, slugs provide food for lots of the lovely little chirpy birds that you have in your garden. So yes, we do need slugs, actually. You just have to work out ways to keep them off your runner beans.
Just an aside, I have spoken to Beck about doing a range of jewellery based around slugs, slug earrings, slug bracelets, that kind of thing. To be honest, she wasn't overly enthusiastic. What have we learnt? Well, we found a wall of death. I've got to say, I'm quite amazed by some of the things, particularly fertilisers. I thought it was really pesticides and weed killers that were bad, but even the fertilisers are full of all sorts of rubbish. My advice on this is that there will be alternatives. Obviously, there are organic alternatives. I might see if I can find a few and put them links at the bottom. I was disappointed, I have to say, the amount of it. I mean, it was just like the big red boxes everywhere of this stuff. I know that getting down your hands and knees, particularly if you've got mobility issues, and picking weeds out, you know, with your hands and like with a trowel or something, is probably not practical either. So you can't condemn people for it. It's just there needs to be better alternatives. There needs to be more awareness of it, because I think if I told you, oh yeah, you put that all over your garden, it'll look lovely, but you're actually wiping out half the insects, you probably wouldn't do it. So just, you know, it's just an awareness piece.
I think the person that came up with the word weeds to define things which gardeners don't actually want to grow has some explaining to do. Now, I'm not a gardener, and I appreciate that weeds mess a lot of things up and they stop things being pretty. So I'm not going to say that you can't do that. But is there a way to do it without covering your garden in all this stuff? You do appreciate that if you have a garden with lots of bees going all over the flowers, well, those flowers are covered in all this poison. The poison comes up through the soil into the flowers, so you're poisoning the bees. And in fact, if you're eating the things that are growing on these, like let's say that you've put loads of weed killer around your runner beans or your raspberries or whatever it is, you're eating that as well. Yay, poison raspberries. Who doesn't have a poison raspberry ripple?
I started off this film talking about honey. So it'd be remiss of me not to talk about the situation with honey, because there's a big problem with British honey. Are we going to run out of honey? No, we're not. But when you go to the supermarket and you're like, wait a second, that jar of honey's £1.50, and that one's £4. That one's British honey, what's this? Well, it says it's British honey or a British brand, but when you look carefully at it, what do you find? Chances are it'll say on the back, non-EU honey, and a lot of it isn't real honey. What? What do you mean it's not real honey?
these honeys that you can buy in supermarkets for a couple of pounds, I don't know what the beekeepers get for that. It's terrible. So I have to question whether that's actual honey at all.
Supermarket honey you can get for less than £2 a jar, 1.65, something like that. It cost me £1 to buy a jar and the labels to go on it. So there's no way that I could sell it for 30 pence a pound. I mean, mine wholesales at around about the £3.50 to £4 a pound mark. All right, and that's the lowest economic price I could sell it at.
Some of it isn't real honey. It's actually something called adulterated honey. It's sugar solution. It's things like corn syrup and stuff like that that's basically been mixed in to make something which tastes like honey, but it isn't. And this actually is a big threat to the British honey industry. Did you know, and this absolutely makes me spitting mad when I heard this, only 10% of the honey that we eat in this country comes from the UK. It's more expensive because A, it's not supported or subsidised by the British government as far as I know. I could be wrong about that, but it doesn't look that way. And I've spoken to beekeepers who have assured me of this. Secondly, we look after our staff, we pay them properly, and of course these are smaller scale operations, so they can't scale the way these big companies can. But we're missing the point here. British bees is British pollinators, which is basically, what we're talking about bees is basically that they're going to be pollinating our flowers, and without them we're screwed. And we need British beekeepers and we need to support them. And one of the ways to do that is to buy the bloody honey. We should be eating British honey. We should be supporting British beekeepers. One thing that really, really drives me mad, Manuka honey, right? Great product. But it comes from New Zealand and Australia. Great product, delicious product, really, really healthy product, but it's come all that way. I mean, that's not exactly carbon friendly, is it? You know, oh, we've got 16 beehives on our roof, but we like our Manuka honey. You know, it's a contradiction there. British honey, heather honey, for example, which can be grown all over the UK where there's lots of heather, has been shown to have all of the same stuff that Manuka honey's got in it for a fraction of the price. So one thing I implore you to do when you stop watching this film is to go out and buy a pot of bloody British honey. So in summary, what is the problem with bees? Bees and flying insects are dying, habitat loss, hay is now silage, hidden chemicals, pesticides and fertilisers, domestic bees versus wild bees, the failure of the government's SFI plan, too many beehives, particularly in urban areas, too much imported honey, and not enough support for honey producers. Okay, absolute disaster, we're all buggered, all the bees are going to die, end of the world. Or is there some things that we can do? Believe it or not, there's a lot of things that everybody can do that will make a big difference. First thing, flowers. Yes, flowers. How many problems can you solve with flowers? Well, certain domestic problems can be solved with flowers. Funerals and weddings will be a bit dull without them. Are funerals dull? Not the ones I've been to, I can tell you. So grow some flowers in your garden. You can buy lots of wildflowers online. Now at PlanBees, we've made our own little bloom bombs here, little clay bloom bombs. We called them bloom bombs. We couldn't use bee bombs because that was already taken. We did think about buzz bombs, but turns out that those are the things that were blowing up large parts of London thanks to the Nazis in the 1940s, so that doesn't really fly either. Basically just a clay ball with lots of native species of wildflower. It's better to use the native species if you can. That's better for the wild bees. Some of our bee ambassadors have been planting these and they're already coming up looking beautiful. Honestly, flowers can make such a difference. Another thing you can do is build one of these. This is a bee hotel, which I have rather amusingly called Airbnb. It's actually just a load of tubes. Some of these tubes I bought from Amazon, they're bamboo. Some of them I've just cut basically bits of hogweed and stuff like that that are dried out. The bees seem to prefer the Amazon ones, which is rather irritating. So my experiment may not be working, but basically they go in there, they lay some eggs, and then they put a bit of mud there, and then they lay some more eggs, and some more mud, and then basically it could be 3 or 4 eggs in there. We've got about 10 or 12 residents in here now, which I'm very excited about. And then eventually they will hatch, and out they will come. There'll be loads more wild bees, and the same thing will hopefully happen year in, year out. So it's a very easy thing to make. I just knocked this up from some old wood that was lying about the place. And look, there's one going in there now. Hello. That's not a hole, that's a nothing. It's wherever it wants to go, it can go. And this is great. I mean, you know, if this means habitat and egg laying for a load of wild bees, just from a bit of mucking it up with some old wood, fantastic. Give it a go. Make yourself a bee hotel. PlanBees, what's it all about? Well, the way I see it, Plan A was to do all this stuff without wiping out bees. Yeah, that didn't work, did it? It didn't work at all. I mean, for what we've been talking about, plan A has been like Armageddon on bees. So PlanBees, obviously the play on the word bees, was Beck's idea. So I'll let her talk about it, and then we'll go into a little more detail.
So I'm Bex, and I'm a goldsmith, yes. And we have created this little project for all the bees called PlanBees. Manchester 2002, for the Commonwealth Games that Manchester was holding, we all ended up in the town hall and was for a massive fashion show and everything else like that, which was bringing together all the creatives, and it was brilliant. During that, I saw all these mosaics all over the floor with bees everywhere, and it was incredible. And then I went into the heritage of this and found out that the bees were, back in the 1800s and everything, were the emblem of Manchester. So I thought, oh my God, wouldn't it be amazing to do this sculpture and bestow it to the people of Manchester? And then I decided around about 2018, right, let's have this. We're going to do it. And we're going to build this 20,000 bee sculpture. Hopefully it's going to be like 12 foot tall, bees everywhere all over it, people's names, their company names, or their kids' names. They will all be in this sculpture, which is incredible. It'll be like a snapshot of that time in Manchester, the companies that are there, the families and everything. From my perspective, I've always been in the wilds. In the wilds. We've had land, love it, and obviously studied the bees and the sort of what's coming around year after year, and oh my God, there's a bumblebee, and then it was like, it's a different bumblebee, and it all became apparent that this whole thing, many wild bees. So we have been monitoring it. I've been monitoring it somehow, subconsciously and consciously, since I was little. And obviously bees are incredible. They're exceedingly precious to everyone now, and that's what it's about. This is getting the awareness out there of how important wild bees are, alongside working with beekeepers and what they're doing in rural, urban and farming environments. We kind of put all the jigsaw pieces together. It's like, it's a win-win situation for everyone. So the bee is a lovely thing. You get to put your company or your kids' names or whatever onto this snapshot sculpture, which will be around for a long time, we hope. And you get a bee as well. So you get to wear this incredible, cool bee. 20% of the profits will actually go to these causes or actual companies and things like that, which are grassroots companies or individuals, but they're looking after the bee habitat. So it could be that you've got a very, very small micro space. It may be that you've got a balcony in a city, but you can still add to the bee kind of environments with that. So it's about that. It's about planting the right things in urban environments, farming environments, redoing the hedges. If there's holes in hedges, have an initiative to actually train more people to do hedge laying and fill the gaps running through and everything. We could give out grants, and it is about giving out grants. It's getting it to grassroots people who, if they are doing hedge laying and things like that, and they need to expand a small company, but it's not easy to expand, to take more people on, to take apprenticeships on and everything like that. It's about actually getting the money to the people who are working with the environment and building these bee habitats around. You can sponsor a bee, so 10 bees, for a small company, for a micro company or something like that, all the way through to 1,000 bees, and that would then be a massive sponsor. They are officially the official sponsors of PlanBees.
So essentially she was inspired by her own environment, she was inspired by the Manchester bee idea, and basically she thought, well, there are different ways to say something, there are different ways to raise money. You can be, if you're a great fundraiser and you're good at, shaking buckets outside supermarkets, or you use all these sort of fundraising charity type ideas, you can do that. Or you could do what Beck did. She thought, you know what, I'm just going to use my own natural skill and my own craft that I've been learning for 30 years. I'm going to see if I can do it with that. But of course, she's an artisan, and she has to survive. So she's worked out a plan where she can actually do business and still support the bees and give them a good whack, 20% of the profits. And it's essentially just using these wonderful little bees that she makes. And they're beautiful, and they'd cost this much money whether they gave the profit or not. And as far as I know, how many other bloody jewellery companies are giving their money to save bees? There's plenty of bee jewellery out there. I don't see them saving the bees. So take a look at planbees.co.uk and see what you think. You know, you can buy one of these things, and if you buy it, obviously it's a lovely thing to have anyway. But second, if you wear it, it's a talking point, and you can say, well, I'm spreading the word. You're basically demonstrating your support for something. We want to get people wearing these all over the country. Be a bee ambassador just by wearing one of these things, and start the conversation at dinner parties and, you know, in the supermarket, at the frozen section. It's just, what are you wearing that for? Oh, have you heard about the bees? It's absolutely terrible. You know, I think this is a really important way to do it. It's a really simple way to do it. And it's an unusual way. I think it's quite brave. It's using entrepreneurial skill. Now, we're very proud to have a group of what we call bee ambassadors. We love them. Basically, they're happy to get involved. They want to help wild bees. We've sent them bloom bombs. They're making films and promoting them online. And we're watching the progress of the plants and the flowers growing. And they're fantastic people. If you want to become one of those, please get in touch with PlanBees via Instagram or the planbees.co.uk website. We can probably send you some bloom bombs. It might be a bit late soon to plant them, but you can get involved in different ways. You can promote and you can spread the message, and also you can find out about the silver bees. You could even become a silver bee seller. You know, a lot of people online, I mean, I'm a content creator myself, and I know that brands don't really look after us and they don't pay us. If you want to sell the silver bees yourself via your content platform, you'll make 10% of the cost price, and 20% of what you're doing will go to helping the Wild Bees project. So not only will you get paid properly, but you actually be doing something useful for the environment, which gives you a warm, fuzzy feeling inside, like you've just swallowed a nest of 400 bumblebees. So what can you do to help? First, grow more flowers. Secondly, create more environments for bees. Thirdly, use less chemicals in any interaction with nature. Number 4, buy British honey, for God's sake. And number 5, check out planbees.co.uk and get involved. It's that simple. So we started out the journey not knowing anything really. We knew that there was different types of bees. I knew about bumblebees and I knew about honeybees, but I didn't know about what was going wrong. I didn't know how different they were, to be honest with you. And now I realise that there's all kinds of strange shit going on, and most of it to do with the really colossally stupid mistakes made by human beings. However, I'm also really inspired by Beck, what she's doing. I'm inspired by talking to Dave. I'm inspired by talking to the beekeepers. I want to support British beekeeping. I want to save wild bees, and we think that you guys can get involved in that. PlanBees is there for you to get involved. We've also given you a few tips. Go out and build a bee hotel, grow some flowers, buy a silver bee, and just start noticing the bees around you. Think about the environment for them, and think about what life would be like without them. So thanks for watching this first film where we just kind of laid out the situation, got a feeling for the ground rules and the landscape of what's going on. In the next few films, we're going to go into more detail. We're going to meet more people. We're going to talk about what bees are doing month by month or seasonally, what to look out for, and hopefully as things start to progress, we'll keep you informed. I'll give you some updates on what's happening with the beehive when we actually try and find out whether we're actually going to get any honey. And of course the bee hotel, which is now full of rather happy, buzzing residents and their little eggs. Thanks for watching.